Chairman House Committee on Petroleum Resources, Ikenga Ugochinyere, has advocated for military action to sack the coupists in Niger Republic so as to restore the democratically elected government in the West African country. Ugochinyere, who made the call at a press briefing in Abuja, commended the chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, President Bola Tinubu, and other heads of government in the West African sub-region for their efforts to restore constitutional democracy in Niger. The lawmaker stated that sanctions against the coupists are not enough. He said it is imperative for ECOWAS to send a strong military force to Niger to oust the coupists and restore democracy in the country.
I'm boldly calling on ECOWAS head of states to adopt a full military action to deploy soldiers immediately to Niger to get Abdurrahman Tichani arrested and his gang of coupists immediately arrested. Because if we do not use Niger as an example, other volatile West African states might collapse to activities of such men. You know, the audacity of a presidential guard getting up in the morning and locking up their president. But as I'm saying this, I also have to make it very important that part of the problem in Africa is the process with which African leaders get into office. So as we are condemning General Abdurrahman Tichani and his group of presidential guard who have gone rogue and detained their president, we must also condemn some African leaders who have discredited the sanctity of their people's ballot. Because if Africa had been practicing democracy in accordance with the constitutional provisions and electoral provisions, you will now see that genuine leaders are elected into position of authority.
The detained leader of IPOB, Kanu, is at the forefront of the campaign to end the sit at home in the southeast. Kanu reportedly wrote a letter to Simon Ekpa in Finland asking him to end the sit at home, which has adversely affected the economic fortunes of the region and caused the death of many people. But it is unclear if Simon Ekpa, the self-acclaimed leader of IPOB, will listen to Nnamdi Kanu and call off his followers. Is there mutual understanding and respect between Kanu and Ekpa? What are the options open to the state governments in the southeast on how to end this situation? Dr. Sam Amadi, a Rise analyst, joins us in the studios to look at this issue. Warm welcome to you on Newsnight.
Thank you, Chris.
This is a very knotty issue, but some analysts believe that it's long overdue. I mean, with the adverse effect it has had on the socio-economic lives of the people of the Southeast. Is it coming too late?
Well, better late than never, they will say. But again, the point is, this is really a tragedy. And interesting, I've been in the Southeast many Mondays. Really, the people are not into sit at home. But now it has become more like a convenient time. So they plan, okay, sit at home, we're going to be there. You know where, in most states where I go, people move around, but the banks fear are closed. So the economic cost is more than the human cost in terms of few fatalities. But basically, people stay at home, and then the banks get shut down. Again, a friend called me, he was going to the airport from Port Harcourt to Warriors, asked me whether on Monday. I said, you can easily move on. But interstate is difficult. So people have quantified the huge economic loss. I mean, the human loss may be less, apart from security persons are targeted, sporadically. The question is, Nnamdi Kanu has never been part of this sit-at-home. No, there was sit-at-home Biafra Day that normally happens, commemoration of Biafra, which many people say is symbolic, which is a day of, in fact,
reminiscences.
Of reminiscences, basically. I mean, in many developed countries all over the world, you see the Holocaust Museum Memorial. They would have been turned into some kind of celebration. I think once Ford Foundation and Vice President, former Vice President.
I wonder how the Nigerian Museum is doing in Umwa here.
Basically, we have been there once. We're not a people of history. I remember instance Oshibanjo had in my Yadwa Center a big Biafra memorial, lectures where we should move on. So those are harmless things. But once Nnamdi was incarcerated the second time, then IPOB adopted sit-at-home on his trial days. Then it degenerated. So right now, this new wave of sit-at-home has no authentic IPOB Uchenna, or whether it's what do you call more powerful, they have all denounced it and said, look, that's not our game. But the problem was that Simon Ekpa, once Nnamdi Kanu was castrated, I think he claimed that Nnamdi Kanu asked him to run the Radio Biafra, which was also Nnamdi Kanu's stepping stone to fame, because he used to work the director of Radio Biafra for Masop, Owazirike, and then he used the Radio Biafra to launch himself to fame. And now, right away, there was some faction.
Within IPOB, yeah.
Simon and some group formed their own.
Yeah.
And then these guys. But the real IPOB, which is more powerful.
And Simon is able to fund them with arms, the group in the
And that's the problem. Most of these, because, the word of armed proliferation and subversive elements
is able to send finances.
They can get financing.
And the Nigerian authorities have not been able to track that.
That is the point. People now argue that maybe there's some strategic security involvement in all this. We've seen the history of the world, even with the black struggle, where state security formations penetrate and use these groups against themselves, and they use them to
whittle down,
and then also orchestrate some nefarious dark agenda. Because otherwise, why is it that now we're getting the other angle, which is the angle of Asante Dokubo, allegations and issues. I've seen survivors of sit at home unknown gunmen claim, one of them, my neighbor, claimed that the people who spoke to him, he is from Ogoni, he said it was an Ogoni person who talked to him. On the day, the guy who was together with the former PDP special advisor who was killed in Imo State, Gulag, said the guy who spoke to him was actually from his community, he's Ogoni. And he said he spoke to him Ogoni. So the point is that it's a complex mixture now. And it happens that that's the problem with militias and problem with revolutionary movements. They easily get disorganized, they easily get fractionalized, and then
they are very murderous.
And splitter group becomes dangerous. So what we are saying now is that unequivocally, and I know that Ejimako is Nnamdi's lawyer from day one. He got this written note. He has now made it public because there was a time lag for Simon Ekpa to accept and announce it formally. He refused. Many factors. One, he claims that until Nnamdi is free, and he says Nnamdi is not involved in whatever happens. He's not part of what is happening. We are doing it for him. He's not the one doing it, but we are doing it for him.
But when Nnamdi must, would have been fed with the havoc that has wreaked on the Southeast.
And that's probably why he's coming out to say, stop. In fact, this is not the first time. We've had Nnamdi say before, but not in written form, reportedly. Say, stop this. You see, the thing is that you can start a thing and not control it. I've had online meetings where I've heard before, long ago, Simon speaks smart like an educated guy, looks smooth, but it's obvious that the agenda he's driving now has become diabolical, dangerous, and that's why I like actually the way the governors are taking it up. Enugu governor, remarkable in the sense that you can't be a governor and allow people to shut down your economy. And so what the Southeast leaders are doing is to step up and say, look, we understand the underlying issues around the Biafra agitations. They have a right, everybody has a right, democratic aspiration to agitate for anything. In the US, people are agitating for Texas separation. It's a fringe phenomenon. And the democratic state must allow people to even have fringe views as long as they do not take the laws in their hand. And so my view and the views of the government such is that whereas people can promote Biafra commemoration, whereas groups can undertake democratic expression, but the moment any group takes over and imposes themselves on the state in a manner that you're not jeopardizing the life of people, and even the founders, all those who are sympathizers, say, look, we can't go this far. So at this point now, it's clear that we're dealing with an enemy. Now the question is that enemy enabled by enemies outside or inside? We're talking about Niger, we're hearing about the Wagner group, we're hearing about the involvement of French, Russians and French and all that. So what happens in Southeast may have fifth columnists, external factors beyond just the IPOB. Now, it may have started as a way of commemorating Nnamdi Kanu's detention and his day of trial. But it has now gotten out of hand. And that's why the strategy should be both kinetic and non-kinetic. I mean, there's no point, nobody should be allowed to take the life of people, on any guise. And so the state must be strong to say, look, this far and no further. You just can't shut down people's life. And again, we saw the video where the people people have rejected in Southeast the notion of shutting down the economy and the social life. They have not so far said we're rejecting IPOB as a social movement, but they are saying we don't
want to sit at home
anymore, and therefore
IPOB is outlawed anyway. So whether they say they accept
if it's outlawed, it's for the state to fix that. For the people, they don't care.
In their mind, it's not outlawed.
But the state, and then when you outlaw something that has not defined membership, you're probably criminalizing the whole people. Because some people identify with Biafra struggle at the level of emotional. We hear about economic Biafra. Those who say, just like any other, people say, oh, we are Pan-Africanist.
If you want to talk about economic Biafra, you people are strong. You are the merchants, in the entire country, the West African coast.
The argument is to see Biafra as a harmless effort to create wealth.
Yeah.
And if there's a vision of Biafra as maybe El Dorado, why not use it now? So the point I'm trying to make is that criminalizing IPOB being prosecuted is a matter for the state and the law. But for people in the Southeast, they just want to have their life back. They just want to, wake up in the morning and nobody tells them they're going to be 1 week shutdown. And again, the failure is the Nigerian state and the Southeast governors who should have done more in terms of improving their legitimacy,
they should have
improving their capacity to engage the communities, and basically before now flush out and shut down the more dangerous one, the unknown government.
The rebels there.
Absolutely.
All right, Associate Professor of Law, Sam Amadi, a Rise analyst, looking at the no sit-at-home order or letter written by Nnamdi Kanu. Thanks so very much.